So today I'll be reading from the book of Daniel, Daniel 14. I'll be telling the story of Daniel and the priest of Bel. You see, I loved the story, and there was always something else I picked up from it, especially for Christians and people that seek for excellence. Most times we hear about Daniel and the lion's den, and it's like the end part of the story. But there was a build up to it. There was the consequences of asking God for wisdom. There was the consequences of being excellent. So I'll spare you all those drama and I'll take into this. So today I'm reading from the book of Daniel. Daniel 14, Daniel and the priest of Bel. So have fun laughing. I want you to see the humor in the story, and I want you to pick up your own lesson. I'd love to hear what you think at the end. When King Astyages died, Cyrus the Persian accepted the throne. Daniel was very close to the king, who held him in high esteem than any of his other friends. Lesson: the Babylonians had an idol called Bel, to which 12 bushels of fine flour, 40 sheep, and 6 measures of wine were offered daily. The king worshipped it and went every day to adore it. Daniel, on the other hand, worshipped only his own God. And the king asked him, "Why do you not worship Bel?" Daniel answered, "I worship no man-made idols, but only the living God who made heaven and earth and rules over all mankind." The king asked, "Do you not think Bel is a living God? Do you not see how much he eats and drinks every day?" Daniel laughed. "Do not be deceived, O king. This is only clay inside and bronze outside." This is the good news version, which is interesting. "It never ate or drank anything." Aggrieved, the king called his priest and said to them, "If you will not tell me who consumes all these provisions, you will all die. But if you can show that Bel consumes them, it is Daniel who will die for blasphemy." Daniel said to the king, "Let it be as you have said," meaning no wahala. There were 70 priests of Bel, besides their wives and children. Together with Daniel, the king went to Bel's temple. The priest said to the king, "See, we are going outside. We will leave you here inside, O king, to set out the food and prepare the wine. Afterwards, lock the door and seal it with your ring. You will return in the morning, and if you find that Bel has not eaten the food and drunk the wine, we're ready to be executed. See boldness. But if the reverse happens, Daniel must die for telling lies and slandering us." They were confident, for they had made a secret entrance under the table, through which they used to come in and consume the food and the wine offering. When the priest had left, the king set the food before Bel, while Daniel ordered his servants to scatter ashes all over the temple floor, with no other witness than the king. Then they left after shutting the door and sealing it with the king's ring. That night, the priest and their wives and children came and, as usual, ate and drank the offerings. Early the next morning, the king returned to the temple with Daniel. "Are the seals unbroken, Daniel?" King asked. Daniel answered, "They are unbroken, O king." Opening the door, the king looked at the table, then exclaimed, "You are indeed great, O Bel. There is no deception in you." Daniel laughed, and restraining the king from entering, he said, "But look at the floor and see whose footprints there are." The king said, "I see footprints of men, women, and children." This was the part that got me laughing. Enraged, the king ordered the priest and their wives and children to be seized. They were compelled to show him the secret door through which they used to enter to consume the offerings on the table. They were put to death on orders of the king, and Bel was handed over to Daniel, who destroyed the idol in the temple. So you see, I read this and I laughed, and this was the build up to Daniel being at the lion's den. And there were 3 things I picked out, and I'd love you to I remember the first part that said that Daniel and the king were friends. And this reminds me about why they say Daniel was the prophet that outlived eras. In my own definition, I call him the prophet without time, the prophet that saw several kings. And the only reason why was that he was excellent. And this is the consequences and the price of excellence, because once you're excellent, the bottom line is that people will drink from your own cup because you're excellent. And that was the epitome of what he represented. Secondly was that before King Cyrus became king, he was his friend. Daniel was his friend. And remembering that there are several people around us that might look ordinary, that we don't know what the next day is for them, but we've built good relationships with them in the ordinary times, it makes it easy for them to always refer to us when the time comes, because for every president, for every leader in the workplace who finally goes to the top, there were people in their circles they listened to. So the key question is, who is in your circle that is drinking from your well, that is ordinary now, that doesn't have the crown? Who in your circle do you think understands your wisdom and you share with them? Because the good thing about friends becoming king is that you don't need to lobby for your friend when you become king. Your friend understands you well, because if you have a friend and is a king, so your ability to build friendship with the ordinary people that you see around you helps every one of us. Because what finally happens is that we always need people like Daniel in every era, because you need excellence. Then the last part was, it looked like common sense that the gods were not going to eat the sacrifice. But it wasn't common sense. It wasn't common sense. And coming to this era, there are several things we think is common sense, and especially in an era where there are several distractions. I think the challenge for Christians in the workplace in this era is quite much, because there are several things you assume everyone knows, but it's not it. And Daniel's sense of humor in there's some things you don't fight. Personally, I see you must be able to have the wisdom. His wisdom played out well when it came to asking his men to put ashes on the floor, because once the king saw the footprints of children, mothers, and men, it became clear to the king that this magic he thought was happening wasn't magic, compared to if he had to keep proving and trying to make a point. In this era, you must learn the wisdom to show, let people see things, compared to trying to prove yourself. Now, the most important part of the story, which I think there are several lessons, was this. This was what built up to Daniel being thrown in the lion's den. And this is what we all seek for when we ask that we are excellent, we stand out at work. The moment you distinct yourself in the workplace and in everything you do, the consequences of it is that those that are not up to par would naturally come against you. And I think you should be ready for it. There will be several lions then for everyone that stands against the people of the era that are not in line with excellence. So don't think asking for excellence and wisdom is just the first part of the conversation. It's just the beginning of everything you would see. But the goal is this: what finally happens to the likes of Daniel was that because they knew their gods, because he knows his God, God always showed up for him. So I had fun in the story, and I'll let you find out what your own lessons are. So what were your own lessons with the story? And have you read your Bible today? The story of Daniel before the lion's den was fun. My name is Charles Sumi. Have an amazing new week. Be excellent at your work. Yeah, pick up our journal for July. It would help you.